actually hit them, especially if goal setting has been a big headache for you. So today I'm going to talk about the best way to set goals. Smart isn't necessarily the only way or the best way. What to do when it feels like your goal is mocking you. Been there, done that. What to do when you feel stuck or you're even going backwards. And what is the most effective thing that you can do yourself to bring yourself back on track. And what is the secret ingredient that's going to help you gain enough momentum to go right past your goals. And we are back. So the very first thing that I'm going to ask you to do today is to tell me, what is your experience with setting goals? Do you love it? Do you hate it? How many of you here are vision board people? So if you're watching the replay, by the way, give me a big old hashtag replay. But tell me, what is your biggest problem or issue when it comes to goal setting? So put that in the comments below, so that way I'll be able to scroll and I'll be able to customize this presentation to help you with whatever problem is showing up for you. Now, I want to see, can you guys hear me? I just want to make sure everything is cool in terms of comments and sound and so on and so forth. There we go. Cool. Hey, Mr. Bassey, you're there. So perfect. So you guys can hear me. There's Cindy. Fabulous. Oh, thank you. Cool. So I want to dive right into this topic because it's a really big one. And Erin, I don't know if you're watching, but it's funny, on one of our group coaching calls, like on Tuesday's group coaching call, one of our clients was like, what do you do when you've set a goal and you haven't hit it? Like, how do you manage that? And I was like, oh my God. I literally am about to go and do a live about this topic. And I had planned this live before she even asked. Question? Oh, I thought, yes. So give me a hashtag replay. If you're watching this in the comments, give me a hashtag replay and tell me, answer the question that I just asked you. What's your biggest issue with goal setting? Okay, so Cindy says, I set goals daily. I write them down 1 to 3 times a day. My biggest problem is I make them too big and I get disillusioned when they don't work out. So Cindy, this is such a common pattern that high achievers use to keep ourselves playing small and to stay stuck. We actually set goals that are way too big and way out of proportion to the point where we can't even really relate to them. And that allows us to feel the feelings of disappointment that are actually native to us that we haven't processed yet. And that's maybe what's behind your pattern. So we're going to get into some of that. Okay, awesome. Hey, Jax. Hey, Jennifer Rogers is here. Fantastic. All right. So step number 1, you're going to create a vision. Okay. So I want you to first create a vision. This is something we actually teach in our program, but I'm going to encourage you to do this. A really great book to read on this topic is Vivid Vision by Cameron Herold. He even has a TED Talk. I know when I say it, it sounds like dead dog. It's not a dead dog. It's a TED Talk. Yeah. Okay, cool. So he has a really good book. It's a very quick, easy process to follow. And what it does, so oftentimes people will screw themselves with goal setting because in the goal setting, especially if you've been taught the SMART goals way, SMART is the acronym. Can someone post in the chat, in the comments, what the acronym stands for? It's like specific, measurable. I don't know. I've stopped doing SMART goals, so I don't even remember what the acronym stands for anyway. But all this to say that I know the R stands for relevant. There is that. And time-based. I've forgotten what the A stands for. Actionable, probably. So there we go. So all this to say that if you've been in the habit of doing SMART goals and being very specific about, I need to make X amount of dollars by X date, if you've been in that position, it's super frustrating because you can see yourself creeping up to the deadline and you're like, I don't know what to do. I'm doing all the things and I don't know how to make decisions about it. So the very first thing that I'm going to ask you to do is to create a vision. The vision, despite the fact that it has the word vision in it, which implies what you can see, the actual way that I do visions and the way that I teach people to do visions in our program is I want you to get crystal clear about what you want your business to look like 3 to 5 years from now. Okay. So 3 to 5 years is a really great time frame where it's not like forever in the future. So your goals get so huge, like Cindy was talking about, where you just can't even relate to them. But you're 3 to 5 years in the future. It's far enough that there's room for new technologies to be developed. It's far enough for new hires to come onto your team to do things that you have no idea how to do. It's far enough in the future that the market may shift and things will come into fruition that you can't really see how you would do it in this moment in time. Okay? Visioning is a really important piece, and you want to have a nice time frame, because what that's going to do is it's going to help you dream big and feel. And that's the important part. Remember, I said the word vision can sometimes be confusing because it's about what you can see. Yes, I want you to see your revenue. Yes, I want you to see whatever your lifestyle is reflected by. I want you to see what your clients are going to be saying about you. I want you to see how your entrepreneurial spirit and the fact that you're doing what you were put on this earth to do, how that affects your circle of influence, right? How that affects your spouse, your kids, your community, your friends. Because when one of us lights up like this, we light the way for everybody whose life that we're in contact with on the daily. Does that make sense? I want you to see all of that. But more than anything, I want you to take each of those pieces once you've written them out. I want you to think, what does that make me feel? Why is this piece so important? And what does it represent to me? And that actually takes us to the next piece, which is ask the magic question. So once you've written out what you want to see, what your revenue goal is, what the press is saying about you, what your clients are saying about you, what your kids are, how this nourishes your family, all of that, how much free time you have, all of that stuff. Once you've written this all out, I want you to go to each piece and ask the magic question. And the magic question is why. And what I mean by why is this thing so important to me? Why is this piece so important to me? What does having my clients be raving fans, what does that actually make me feel? Why is it so important to me? And you might go down to because I want to feel like I'm making a difference. Okay, well, why do you want to feel like you're making a difference? Well, because I want to feel like my life is worth something. Well, why do you want to feel like your life is worth something? Do you see? And you go down and down and down until all you're left with is a feeling, an emotion. Does this make sense? Put your hand up and be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Tell me that if this makes sense, because this is super important. You're playing for a feeling. Here's what I have learned the hard way from doing this now for years and feeling very stuck and very frustrated and like a complete loser, even though it felt like how many of you feel this? The harder you work, the more you put into it, the more hours you put into it, the more all-nighters you pull, the more tactics you deploy, the more stuck and loserly you feel. God-carrying member of this tribe. I've totally been in this position. And I was like, wow, this is so not working. And then what happens is the process is not working for me. So I assume the goal is unavailable to me, right? And then it is not working just becomes kind of my overall emotion around this subject. And I start to feel really heavy, the goal. And I have so been in this place where I've had things up on my vision board, and then I will kind of see it out of the corner of my eye, and I'll be like, I feel like my vision board just flipped me the bird. Like I've had that number on my vision board for months now, or multiple quarters in a row. And I was supposed to hit that number like a gajillion years ago, and I'm still here. So I really feel like it's like, you're not going to get me. And it just makes me feel really not good about the goal. And when I'm not feeling good about the goal, you can bet your booty that I'm not going for it with everything that I've got. I'm not in alignment with it anymore. So one of the things that I'm very, very careful about is to really examine. So, Cindy, if you were to do your daily goal setting, examine how the goal makes you feel. And a lot of times you will notice when you're doing this, your goals are actually not your goals. They're goals that you've picked up from wanting to be significant to somebody else. You want to impress a mentor. You want to impress your spouse. You want to impress your parents. You've always thought that you wanted X, Y, or Z thing. And when you sit down and you do the feeling test and you ask the multiple layers of why, you might find there's absolutely no emotional resonance there at all. And that is so freeing, because then you can just let it go. You can just be like, bye-bye. And now that makes room for you to set a goal that really resonates with you emotionally. Okay, moving on to the next point. focus on the feeling. So I've talked about this in some detail here already. I want you to really think, I know it's a vision, which again implies what you see, but again, each piece, the car that you want, the house you want to live in, the revenue goal, the teammates, the client stories, the press, all of it, ask yourself, what does this represent? What is the feeling I want to feel? And most people, I want to caution you about this, a lot of people, I've seen people be like, I want to feel like I'm successful. Successful is not a feeling. It's not an emotion. You have to get down to an emotion. Or I want to stop feeling stuck. So that's another mistake that I see people make, where they kind of think about, what is the negative that I don't like? What is it that I don't want? You always want to think, when you're setting a goal, what do you want? So the absence of something is not a relevant goal. That's a survival piece. Okay. You're in survival mode if you're still doing that. So if you're like, I would like to stop being broke, that's not a goal. That's not a positive goal. That's a negation of your current state. Does this make sense to you? So if you catch yourself, and we've all done it, I'll be like, I would like to stop feeling so stressed. I would like to have some more free time because I don't have any right now. If all of those things, so having free time is a good goal because it's a positive, but not feeling stressed, that would be a negation. So you don't want to be setting goals that are negations of your current state. Think about what is the opposite of that state. What does the emotion, what is the somatic feeling in your body that you want to experience? So typically people will set goals that have the feeling of love, of joy or happiness, of freedom. So freedom is not strictly an emotion, but it has a very interesting somatic, in my book anyway, and what I've experienced with clients, is that freedom has a physical feeling to it. There's an expansiveness, like you'll feel your rib cage kind of open up. You breathe differently when you think of freedom, when you really have the feeling of freedom in your body, like it just kind of expands you. Does that make sense? So yeah, no negations of current state. So you want to be thinking, what is that end goal? This is super important, because what we're going to do in the listen, when we go to listen for inspiration, is you're going to start, and I'll teach you a way to listen for inspiration that's different from probably anything you've ever heard. So this is a really powerful tool that I use to manifest things that I have no business having, like honestly, that are just magic. I'm teaching my kids how to do this, and I would love to teach you how to do this. So first, you got to go focus on the feeling. Next thing, here's what will happen oftentimes. So for those of you who are in that place where you're negating your current state, where you're like, I just want to stop being broke. I just want to stop feeling so stressed. I want to stop feeling like I'm lost or stuck. Great. If that's what's coming up and you just can't get past it, that's a sign your subconscious is basically waving a big red flag to say, dude, you have a lot of unprocessed emotions. You need to process these emotions because it's getting really heavy. We're carrying a lot of this load, and it's impossible for us to gain any momentum when we're carrying all this load. Okay, so what you have to do is release the blocks. Now, obviously, you know what I'm going to say here. Anybody? Care to sing along? What do you think I'm going to say? Go to the subconscious blocks exercise. So I created a pretty link so that it's easy for you to find. You go to impactwithinfluence.com/subconscious. Please spell it right. And or if you're in the Facebook group Messaging That Makes Money, you can go to the media section. You can just go through where all the videos are, and then you can actually click on the link and it will show you where the actual exercises. So I'm wearing a kind of what Pat calls my Flintstones top. I think it's chic. Pat thinks it makes me look like a Flintstone, but there you have it. It's kind of stripy like a zebra. And I walk you through a 5-step process that is one of the most powerful tools that I have in my arsenal. If you scroll through the feed in the Facebook group in Messaging That Makes Money, you will see people who have done this exercise and exorcised demons that they have carried for decades. They have found out things about themselves that they had no idea they were carrying. It is one of the most powerful tools you could possibly use. I highly recommend you use it, because if you don't acknowledge the fact that you have all that stress, or you're like, I want to stop feeling broke. Broke is in fact a state. It's not an emotion, but it is a state, and it is a mental state, because I know plenty of people who literally have millions in the bank, actually real life millions in the bank, but behave and experience brokenness on the daily. So they literally tell themselves they don't have enough money. They don't allow themselves pleasure. They are constantly stressed. They're always like watching their money. They're very, very like angsty about it. Also, the freedom that you would assume would come with millions in the bank they don't experience it at all, even though they actually have the physical manifestation of that money, if that makes sense. So you don't want to end up like that, right? You would rather just be free no matter how much money is in the bank. That's what I would like, right? Yes, having money in the bank is fantastic, but what I really want, the whole purpose of having that money is to experience freedom and expansion and permission. So what I do, and this brings us to the next piece, is once I've released my blocks, I have to figure out, okay, what are my blocks? What am I actually afraid of here? And then I make a deal with my subconscious to be like, okay, I have an agreement with you. I'm going to make sure that, if we make 100K a month or 200K a month or 300K a month, we're not going to burn out. We're not going to burn our team out. We're not going to, like, all the things that I'm actually afraid of that are preventing me from showing up. Then I release the goal. This is a super important piece that I have learned the hard way. How many of you can relate to this? I remember being at the start line of a marathon. Okay, I had signed up for a marathon. I had never run a marathon before in my life. I had run a half marathon multiple times, but I had never run a full marathon yet. And I remember standing at the start line of a marathon and thinking, even if I finish this race, which I'd never done before, which was like double the distance I'd ever run in my life, even if I finish this race, what's a marathon these days? Freaking everybody and their grandmother runs a marathon. Like, really, where the money's at is the ultras. And not just any ultra, not like 30 miles, like 100 miles, right? And honestly, now that people are running 100 miles, there are other people who are running 240 miles. So it's kind of like this escalation that we will often do as high achievers. Can anyone relate to this? I might be the only crazy person in here, but I have done this to myself. So tell me if you can relate to where you've set a goal for yourself. It is wild. It is audacious. And I was standing at that start line having overcome pelvic floor dysfunction. So I should not have been running at all. Like two physiotherapists told me that I could never run again. I had to fire them and find a third who even agreed to work with me for the 2 years it took me to get to that start line. So this was a really audacious goal for me anyway, just the marathon. But I had already completely kind of thrown any celebration out the window before I had even achieved it. And so a lot of times when we do that, see, there you go. Cindy says, I didn't Ironman for the same reasons. I think there's a lot of, I agree, Jennifer says, what's wrong with Wilma Flintstone? I think she's hot, anyway. So all this to say that when what we often do is we'll set crazy, audacious goals. If we actually get anywhere close to getting to them, we immediately switch the goalposts. I have done this to myself so many times. We don't take time to celebrate. We don't take time to like revel in the glory of it. And I will tell you, I have been following people who are proud of the fact that they're like, stay hungry, don't rest on your laurels, and just like, I literally was following a guy. I got coaching from him even, who was an ultra runner, ran this crazy race where he was it was called last man standing. So there's no finish line even, other than you have to run longer than all the other participants in the race. So you don't even know what the distance is going to be. You don't know what the time is going to be. It's really hard for you to pace yourself because you're just like, I just have to keep running until everybody else stops running. Like, that's how stressful that race is. It's like a really, really, really hard race. And his whole thing that he was proud of and that he shared was, you know what? Once I did it, I was like, there, that's done. I'm never going to, I don't think about it anymore. I'm thinking immediately, what's my next race? What's the next thing? And I remember following people like that and thinking that was the appropriate way to set goals and progress in life. And I have a very different take now. And maybe that's because I'm getting older. Maybe it's because I'm a woman. I don't know. And tell me your thoughts in the comments, because I'm really curious about where you sit with this, no matter what gender we're at. Okay. That feels to me almost like having $1 million in the bank and still feeling broke. Like, what is it that you're trying to prove? Expansion is fantastic, but isn't there a place for celebration? Isn't there a place for rest? Isn't there a place for absorption, integration, reflection? When we put ourselves through a quest like that, there's a lot to integrate. There's a lot to absorb. And I know this person has a process for integration, but it's very quick. Like, it's like one evening and then next day we're like off to the races again. And I'm like, I don't think that I could possibly survive at that pace. Like, I would burn the frick out and kill everybody. So anyway, all this to say that it's super important to release the goal, because what I have realized is that goals evolve. And because goals evolve, practices and process will evolve as well. Team will evolve, everything will evolve. The only thing that stays the same is the feeling. That's what I have realized. And when I started to set my goals around the emotion and the physical feeling that I wanted to feel, that I wanted to wash my cells in, my life completely changed. I have been able to surpass goals that previously felt absolutely unattainable because I'm no longer I no longer associate success with some very narrow metric. I'm actually open to the universe delivering to me something that is far more efficient than what I, in my mortal way, had imagined. Does this resonate for you at all? This has blown the lid off any previous limits that I used to have. And I am loving it. And the other beautiful thing about thinking this way is that if you think of law of attraction, right, your vibration is now set at the frequency of you being successful at whatever it is you've chosen, right? And you've taken the details of it, you've blurred the details so that you're like, I feel successful. I feel like this is happening for me. And then what that does is it also brings on a whole bunch of people who are magnetized by that vibration to then help you build whatever it is you're building, to help you get to wherever it is you want to go. So you're not also having to figure it all out by yourself. So that's been a huge shift for me personally. Does this make sense? So yeah, there you go. So so Jennifer says, takeaway, it's important to celebrate the goals. Celebrate, no sabotage. Because I have seen a lot of people work their buns off, and a lot of clients come to us because they've lived this cycle. They have worked their tails off. They have built, in some cases, multi-million-dollar companies. And then it has all fallen apart like a house of cards. Why? Because they couldn't sustain it. They were just running themselves at this impossible pace, and you kind of meet a wall at some point. If you're not nourishing yourself along the way, you hit a wall, and then you just can't proceed. So I'm just gonna walk you through all the steps so far. Create a vision, ask the magic question, which is why this is where you're peeling back all the layers until you get to that nugget of emotion. You want to learn to feel that emotion on the daily. Your practice is to learn to feel that feeling without it being attached to anything else. No external circumstance required. You're allowed to laugh like a loon and be super happy for no good reason on the worst possible day. That is truly the secret to this form of goal setting. Okay, focus on the feeling. Release blocks. If you're having blocks where it feels like your vision board or your goals are flipping you the finger because they've been so long coming, then you have to go and think about, okay, if I actually hit this goal, what are my blocks to it? What are my blocks? Peel back the layers and figure out what your inhibitors are. Because if you don't address those inhibitors, you're just not going to get momentum. Okay? Next piece, release the goal. So you're like, you've released the blocks. Now you also release the goal. Now you're free. Now you just feel the feeling. You focus on feeling the feeling. And that's what you wash your body in every single day. You're like, oh, I feel good. This is what success feels like to me. You revel in the smallest, most banal things. I know it sounds really dumb, but that's what success is to me. That's what abundance really is to me, is I can have crap tons of joy from silly Post-its that Pat bought me because I'm like, this one says, do no harm, but take no crap, right? Awesome. And this will bring me like as much joy as like a $20,000 sale, right? Like all of these things are so important. So I want you, if you can just allow yourself to feel expansive and feel the feelings, weirdly, the things that mirror those feelings start to appear in your life. People want to work with people who have that expansive energy. They want to be coached by them. They want to help them build their team. They want to be in their circle. They want to have relationships with them. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's how that works. Next, this is super important. Listen for inspiration. And this is where you're allowing your intuition to kick in. This is where, if you're religious at all or spiritual, if you have any practice around surrender, this is what this looks like. This is the piece where you surrender the goal. So you've kind of released the goal, but you're also releasing your attachment to the timeline or the adulation or the like, I have to have that goal in order to feel that emotion. No, you're going to feel the emotion. And now you're going to be and something I do is I say, universe, help me see it. Help me know it when I see it. I have my phone's not here. I don't know where oh yeah, my phone's right here. On my phone, I have an affirmation that, pops up. It's just in my reminder app, and it pops up every day, and it says, I every day I learn to love myself more. I trust myself to make the right decision. I have 2 affirmations. I always make the right decision. And I do, because I made it. It is the right decision. No matter what decision it is, no matter what the outcome is, it is always the right decision. I'm always going to get something amazing out of it. So when I go in with that assumption, I always find that, even if it's not what I would have consciously predicted or chosen. Does that make sense? And this is how I've made it a habit to just have that expansion constantly, or what we call a habit of winning. Okay. And then the last piece is super important. And all of you parents of children, young children especially, this one's for you. Refresh yourself. Take a break. Have days
one.
off.
Didn't you miss one?
No, I didn't. Listen for inspiration.
Oh, I missed one. You had to refresh. Okay, I'm putting refresh on.
Okay.
Refresh yourself. It's on the screen right now. I'm live with you. I'm admitting to everyone that I just
there you go.
Forgot this one. Sorry.
Yeah. So you got to, and again, if just to recap what Listen for Inspiration is about trusting your intuition, asking for guidance.
And then
so you can
refresh.
be like, yeah. And then you go to refresh yourself. So refresh yourself is where you take a break, right? It is exhausting. Parenting is exhausting. Marriage is exhausting. Not every day. Some days.
What? I'm sorry. What?
What?
Sorry,
I didn't say that.
Are you talking to me?
I mean you.
Marriage in general? The notion of marriage is... I'm sorry. Oh, okay.
Exactly.
Okay,
that's
bye.
my story.
Okay, sorry. I'm leaving the room now.
But like, seriously, there's so much that is really tiring about entrepreneurship and the constant pressure that you're under. Pressure to be the bestest spouse, the bestest parent, the bestest friend, the bestest fill in the blank, right? The bestest coach, the bestest consultant. So we've got all of this pressure. And something I learned from a mentor very early in my journey that I would love to share with you, because I do not hear this said enough. If you want to leave a legacy, if you want to have enough time in the game to really build up a legacy, and you want to work hard at that, and you want a legacy that really changes things, then you have to learn to rest as hard as you play. And this was like, I was like, and I was in a room. It was so interesting because this is a program called Strategic Coach by Dan Sullivan. And I was in a room. I remember I signed up in my first year of business because we had done well enough that I squeaked by the qualification. And I was in a room with all these people who were in their 50s and 60s. And I was the baby in the room. I was the youngest, like my business was the youngest. And I was probably the youngest too at the time. And all of these people had come to the program because they were burning out, because they were like they had fallen out of love with the work because they had just done it for so long and under so much pressure that they were like, I don't even care anymore, but I just don't know what else to do. Like a lot of people were in that place. And I was sitting there with like my wide googly eyes and I was like, oh my God, what? And this guy, Dan Sullivan, he's in his 70s right now. He writes a book a quarter. He has multiple podcasts out that he collaborates with different people on. And he coaches and he takes 4 months off a year. 4 people, months, not weeks, months. And he believes that the whole reason that he has as much energy and health and vitality in his 70s, where he can continue to work and contribute, is because he has built his retirement into his everyday life, where he's like, if I didn't walk away from my business, where I don't check phones, I don't check emails, I don't put out files, like I have a team for everything. He deliberately built that team and he's running an 8-figure business. So we're talking, last I heard it was 33 million. So it's probably more than that now. He's like probably in the $40-45 million range. Okay. He's in that place and he's able to do that. And he believes that it is because he took those breaks, because he was very deliberate about rest. And when you walk away from your day-to-day, when you walk away from the problems that preoccupy you, you will receive perspective. You will be able to see things with fresh eyes. You will connect back up to the things that nourish you. We talk about, get paid every day. This is that idea, right? And then what that does is then it brings you back with renewed energy, a much more interesting perspective. You can problem solve with just a wider toolkit. You're a more, well-rounded person. You've invested in your health and your well-being. You're taking breaks. You're nourishing your body. You're having experiences and nourishing your relationships with your family. That's super important because, as another mentor of mine, Jesse Itzler, says, you have to stay in the game long enough for luck to find you. And most of us don't stay in the game long enough or self-sabotage and take ourselves out of the game right before things are about to really come to fruition because we don't know how to rest. So I'm a huge proponent in refreshing oneself. You have to be deliberate about it. If you just leave it to free time, like if you're like, free time, I'll figure it out when I'm free, you'll never be free. I guarantee you that freedom that you seek, you got to build it into your life when you think you have it the least. That's how you're going to grow it. So if you can't take a month off right now, then take an hour off on a Friday. End an hour or 2 hours early. That's where I started. I actually did that. I would end 2 hours early on a Friday. That was my buffer time. I'd go for a run. I'd take a bath. I would read a book. I would just wander around the city and, have a coffee by myself. This is before the pandemic, and that's what I did. That expanded to a half day on Fridays. That expanded to a full day on Fridays. And on Fridays, it became my thinking day. And the way that we were able to see opportunities that other people didn't see yet was because I had time to think. Most of us don't. So a huge part of meeting your goals faster is learning to rest and refresh yourself and walk away from the problems. And then the final piece is, of course, get the right help, right? No one is a self-made anything. I don't believe in this. Just as no heart surgeon, no matter how good he is at his craft, can do heart surgery on himself, no massage therapist could give themselves a back massage. I believe that everybody needs, so just as you can take a break from your business or your parenting, like to just go take a walk, you take a little break from your life and you always come back with perspective. Having someone else's perspective on your business, on your life, somebody who will see where something that you believe is set in stone is a complete, it's like, there is no way, this is how it is, this is all that's available. Somebody will be able to just be like, boop, and pop that open, and then all of a sudden your possibility just expands like this. I have been very, very fortunate. Like, imagine if I hadn't had that experience of sitting in Dan Sullivan's room at Strategic Coach and thinking, oh my God, so the way that I have to do it is to schedule my free days first. I have to schedule my free time first and schedule my work around my free time and not the other way around. I would have probably ended up in my 50s or 60s burnt out and bitter. Like, I have a very different understanding, and we work with a lot of burnt out, bitter people who have built huge businesses that they have trashed because they were just like, I'm done with this. I'm so tired of it. How many of you can relate to this or know somebody who has had something what they killed themselves to build, and then right when it got built, they were like, fuck it, I'm done, right? Can anyone relate? Because I definitely have friends in real life, not just one, like multiple of them that are in this space that have totally done this. And getting the right help gives you perspective. It gives you guidance. It gives you processes that you can put into place without having to invent them from scratch. And if this has resonated with you and you're looking to build a coaching practice that you really love, that gives you freedom, that helps you feel the feelings that you want to feel, where you've been put on this earth to have purpose, to feel lit up, to feel inspired, and to create that spark in others, then use the link on your screen and talk to someone on my team to see where we can help you identify your own blocks and how we can support you in getting out of your own way so that you can build a sustainable, fully scalable, and deeply fulfilling and very lucrative coaching or consulting practice in the short term. Okay? All right, I'm going to take some questions now. All right, let's see. What do we have here? So Jamie says, all my teachers literally cut the energy cord after they share a deep and meaningful retreat workshop, etc. And they teach us to do the same so that you're not worried that you're going to lose, you're not carrying somebody else's energy. That's a really good way of thinking about refresh and the whole refresh yourself. That's super cool. Jennifer says, I just realized that my new toughest thing is being an entrepreneur. It's a new thing for me, as I've recently been saying, the toughest thing was being a stepmom before. But now using my stepfamily experience to grow and turn that into coaching to help other families prevent re-divorce. So interesting to take a step back and gain perspective there. Incorporate rest into the journey. All the players who don't like think about it, right? If you never rest, if you don't have any other facets to your identity and you're only defined by this one thing, then what happens if a pandemic comes along or an injury comes along or some health challenge comes along and it wipes out your ability to do that thing that you know yourself to do? And that's all you know yourself to do. You have no other dimensions to your identity or very thin dimensions outside of your work identity. What are you left with? Right? It can be devastating. And I've had coached people through this devastation. It's really hard to recover from. But if you have rest built in, if you're nourishing your relationships, you're nourishing your body, you're taking time off, your kids know and love you and are deeply connected to you because you're putting in the hours and you've got the energy to give, then if something goes wrong with your business or there's like a pivot that you have to make because of whatever external circumstances, you've got other things nourishing you. You've got most of your life is still cool. So you're like, all right, okay, this part sucks. Okay, I sit, I feel my feelings, I figure out what my blocks are here. And then I can go in with a renewed perspective, be like, I see where the opportunity shifted. So one thing I do know is that opportunities like matter in the universe. Matter doesn't ever get destroyed. Does everybody know this? This is a physics principle. Matter, there is the exact amount of matter in the world. Now, some people believe it's expanding, but it never contracts. It's always expanding. So there is the same amount of matter in the universe. It never changes the amount of matter. However, matter changes form. So you can imagine a cloud, which is gas, turns into rain, which is liquid, turns into a cup of tea, which is also liquid, turns into an ice cube, which is now solid. It's the same thing. The cloud doesn't die. The rain doesn't go anywhere. It just turns into something else. Opportunity is exactly like that. And when you're fully connected to your truth and your intuition is turned up on high, then you can see when opportunity is shifting. You're not going to be panicking, be like, oh, opportunity right away. You're going to be like, interesting. It's shifting. Where is it going? And you're going to be able to see things that other people can't see. That's what I'm talking about. That deep connection to self, that comes from resting. That comes from understanding that the vision, the outward dimension of whatever it is we're questing for, it's just a goal. It's just a light at the end of the tunnel. That's all it is. It's not meant to be more than that. We're not playing for physical objects or revenue goals, or it's not really like that. Those are just kind of like a direction. And if you understand that that's all they are, then you don't have to get too attached and you can blow right past them when you need to. And you can toggle your journey when you need to, and you can rest when you need to. Does that make sense?
Can we share the subconscious link
The
again?
subconscious. Sure.
I would like to put it on screen.
So Pat asked me to the voice in my ear. Can you guys hear him too? They can hear. Yeah, they can hear you. Cool. So Pat wanted me to put up the subconscious blocks exercise, the link on the screen, so that those of you who haven't yet done it, or those of you who've done it but a while ago, I would highly recommend that you incorporate this tool and use it again and again and again. I will tell you this, I use it to make hiring decisions. I use it to make firing decisions. I use it to make decisions where I feel stuck and I don't know what to do. I use it to understand, like if I'm feeling kind of like a bubbling, roiling feeling, and I'm like, what's my deal? I don't even know what my deal is. What's my problem? This is the thing that helps me uncover it. Does that make sense? I mean, it's like a Swiss Army knife. You can use it for just about anything, and it is super duper powerful. So I'm giving it to you for free. Do me a service and actually use it. Take it out into the world. Use your own, strip off the layers and blocks that you're struggling with, pull off your armor and go and show up for whoever you're meant to serve. And you can do that just by using it. Just use it. That's all I'm asking. Okay. And if you need further support in building things out, then we're there for that too. But if you're not in a place to do that, here's a free tool that actually freaking works. I know it. It's my #1 tool that I use. All right. Let's see. Mayuri says, here's me. Hello, Smee. Smee. Okay. So Mayuri says, my issue has always been too many identities and not taking rest in the other extreme. Yes, I can totally see that. Okay, let's see. From a spiritual standpoint, Mariella says, the soul needs to be able to register your experiences because we take our experiences into our next life. Interesting. If we do not relish and celebrate our wins and move on to a new goal instead, in the next life, we will set the same goal as if we never experienced it. Anybody feel like they're living Groundhog Day? Mariella, that's a great explanation for that. That's cool. This is what the wheel of samsara is. So setting goals are good, but it is more important to be present in that moment when we achieve it. Oh, this is why we get along so well, Mariella. This is preaching to the choir, baby. And in the moment, and integrate that, you have to integrate that into your being. And sometimes we need to stay there for a long time until the integration is complete. I am so learning this lesson. I could not agree with this more. Sometimes you have to actually rest to integrate. And then when you've integrated it, when you get back up, you are so powerful. You're so much more powerful than if you just rested for 5 minutes. You would still be the same person as you were 5 minutes ago. And sometimes it takes you 5 months to rest and fully integrate something to be able to then wake up and you're like, wow, you're like this completely reborn being. It's so true. I've so experienced that. Physically and intellectually and business-wise, absolutely. Pat's like, want to adopt a cat? You're not allowed to adopt. It's me. She will puke on you. She will. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? I have time for maybe a couple of questions before we can wrap. Let's see. Mayur's like, yeah, I don't think my dogs would appreciate that. Yeah, probably not. She's very good with dogs. We used to have a dog before she passed.
I think that this is the perfect setup with me. A dog.
Pat
a different family.
Pat and Smee have a blood feud. They really just mix like oil and water. Smee will constantly puke under Pat's desk and scratch his stuff and leave hair. No, actually, she doesn't scratch furniture, to be fair to her. She scratches her scratching post. She's very disciplined about that. But she will like leave her hair on all his stuff, especially his dark stuff. And she has this amazing thing. This is obviously very relevant to setting goals, clearly. But anyone with cats can totally relate to this. Someone wrote a question. Okay, cool. You wrote a question. Where's the question? It's me. I sometimes feel when feeling detached from my goals, my mind sometimes just goes quiet, which feels great, and I get scared to stay there too long. Ooh, juicy, Jamie. So here's the thing. Yeah, I know I get what the question is. I understand what the question is. The question is, do I have permission to stay there? And what would happen if I stayed too long? Would I get completely disconnected from reality / my goals? Will I be able to bring myself back? That's really what you're asking. So here's what you would do, Jamie. I would get you to do the subconscious blocks exercise and stay. If I were to stay in that place of peace for long, I fear that or I worry that. That's going to be your exercise. And since you work with us anyway, you can submit it through help desk or put it in the group, and we can help you through that. Nomita says, question, I feel a little guilty just feeling my feelings and taking the shortcut through the hard work. That's interesting because I don't find that there's any lack of hard work involved. Even when you feel your feelings, there is a physical component to success. So I want to be clear. I'm not one of those manifestation gurus. I mean, maybe I just don't know how to do it and that's why, but I'm not one of those manifestation gurus who will sit there and be like, just imagine it and it will appear. Maybe that's true, but my understanding is that you are both an energetic spiritual being as well as a physical being. So in order to honor the physical, there is an element of action, physical actions that must be taken. So you're not like, if I were to stand here and use my muscles to hold me up and have a moment of peace and quietude, I'm able to do both those things without taking one away from the other. Nomita, if you were to actually feel your feelings and do this practice of bringing things in, it in no way means that, like, what are you worried about? So here's the question for you. What are you actually worried you will lose if you take a shortcut? So if I were to take a shortcut and avoid the hard work, this is your subconscious blocks exercise. If I were to take a shortcut and avoid the hard work, I fear that or I worry that. Fill in the blank with what that looks like and figure out what your own inhibitors are. Because I can guarantee you, like, I do the work of sitting and integrating, and there's plenty of hard work left to do. Like, there's no shortage of work to do if you choose to do it, I find, in my experience. Things don't appear by thinking. Hard work is always involved. Thinking just brings clarity. Exactly. thinking or that feeling. So it's not really thinking because it's not all up in your head. It's like a fully somatic experience. We call it visualizing. I actually coined a word for it because you're using your entire body, you're using your entire somatic experience. What that does is it brings you clarity, it brings you alignment, and it allows you to get in full alignment with whatever actions you're taking anyway. So you would be taking some action, right? So all this does is it helps you take the action that brings you to your goal or your destination in the most expedient way. And when you're feeling a particular feeling and you're like, okay, now what action is going to help me feel this feeling more? You see how that it creates this amazing alignment. Does that mean that you feel joyous and therefore all your actions make you feel joyous? I wish. Not necessarily true. Like, for example, if you're trying to lose weight or you're trying to get fitter, then you might sit there and imagine what it feels like. You understand what feeling fit or strong actually means to you, regardless of scale numbers or dress sizes or any of these things, right? So those are the external metrics. That's what I'm saying. That's the visual of it. That's important just as a signpost, even to be like, okay, that's the size that I would like to be, but why? Why do I want to be that size? Because I want to feel really good in my body. Why do I want to feel good in my body? I want to feel fit. I want to be able to move. Why do I want to do blah, blah, blah? You ask the magic question, multiple layers of the magic question. And then when you get to that feeling, you want to feel strong. You want to feel capable, whatever that looks like for you. Then you say, okay, what's going to help me feel that way? Now, when you do squats or when you do push-ups or when you go for a run or whatever it is, whatever exercise you've chosen to do or whatever eating pattern you've chosen to follow, you're going to do it from that place of this makes me feel strong. And I feel strong. So now it's not about deprivation. It's not about the pain of the effort. You're going to feel that burn and you'll be like, this is making me strong. Do you see? Now you're going to want to do it. That alignment is what brings you to your goals faster and more consistently. Does that make sense? Yeah. Cool. So Jennifer's big takeaway is, oh no, it took my thing away. I lost it. Here we go. So Renee says, you nailed it. SMART is the acronym. Specific. Oh yeah, she's talking about the acronym. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. Yes. Okay, Jennifer's takeaway is, here we go. Honor the physical and the spiritual. It's both and. Do you guys remember me talking about both and? There's a post, if you scroll the feed, there's a post where I talk about my philosophy of both and. Most of us screw ourselves and limit ourselves by creating an either or. Either I'm only a spiritual being or I'm only a physical being. And I don't know how to integrate those two. And again, it goes back to integration. Why? Because we as a culture have forgotten how to rest so we can integrate. We have forgotten how. Kids know how to do this. Right? We have forgotten how. And so we have to go back to that integration. And when we can integrate body and soul, we can start to integrate these seeming dilemmas that we have. I could either do this or I could do this. 9 times out of 10, actually 10 times out of 10, there is a way to do both. You just have to learn the process of integration so you can do it on multiple levels in multiple contexts. All right. That's it for me, guys. Thank you so much for all these amazing questions. I love this community. You guys are so amazing. I would love for you to share your biggest aha so that you can put that in the comments, your biggest aha from this and what you're going to integrate and how you're going to change your day. So I would like you to think about how you're going to change your day and put that in the comments for me. All right. And look for a post that I'm going to post a little bit later because I want to know how many of you have actually written a vision. How many of you have done that exercise? I would really like you to take some time and do it. And don't try and produce that vision. The how is none of your business at this point. Do the vision first. The how will reveal itself. All right. Bye.